Hello, and welcome to A Mental Break. I'm your host, Taylor Simpson, and on today's episode, I have the very beautiful, very talented man, Morgan Dunbar on the show. Morgan, how's it going, buddy?
Thank you, Taylor. I'm doing great. Okay. That's a lovely introduction.
Hey, no worries, man. Morgan and I, we go, want to say 3, 4 years back, maybe?
Accurate.
Have we been friends for that long?
Yeah. I would say what equally as long as Lena. I'd say it's that kind of toss up.
That kind of toss up, yeah. So about almost going on 4 years, probably.
Yeah, yeah, not
Yeah,
bad.
we met through
Bad.
mutual friends,
Yep.
and we've had many a drink together,
People, I believe, right?
many a show together, many a drink, many a dance.
Yes.
Maybe we'll bring up
Yeah.
that story later on.
That a story? Oh my God. Are you gonna?
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I could picture us dancing, but I couldn't tell you where or how it happened.
It was at Cherry Cola's, and it
Okay.
was at the Common Chase show we played with the teachers band that in from Seneca. Oh, God, I can't remember what the hell they were called now. If you're listening, teacher, I'm so sorry I forgot your band name, but Blind Mule. They're called Blind Mule.
Oh my gosh, I don't think I realized that was a Seneca teacher band. I'm sure you guys pointed at it.
Yeah, we opened for them at Cherry Cola's, and then afterwards, there was that cool like uh prog. I would say prog, but it was just like the upbeat kind of pop rock band that came on afterwards, and we were all like dancing and shit. And then you and I were like, I wouldn't say belligerently drunk, but you and I got decently drunk and had like a whole dance off.
Nice. Good
That was.
enough to have a dance off. So we were competing then. We weren't dancing together. That's what I
I think
was
it was
saying.
kind of both.
Okay.
I think it started off as a competition, and we just kind of like, let's just do it together.
I for some reason I could picture us like we were ballroom dancing together somewhere. Like
That makes sense.
looks like we were doing a whole thing.
I'm sure that happened at least once.
I'm just thinking of like, was it Tobacco maybe too, that other band?
We did play a show with them. You guys
I
played that
remember
show too, actually.
pretty turned up on that one too. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good show. That was a great show, actually. That was the charity show we played.
I remember dancing with other Jesse's mom at that show, and that was incredible.
Yes.
Good times, right?
Great times, man. But yeah, so Morgan is a fellow musician too. He's been in a bunch of bands, Wrong Brothers. He's got his own solo stuff, which is awesome. You gotta go check that stuff out. Um, yeah, we've been pals for a while. He's a great dude. He's a great dude, and he's graciously accepted to come on the podcast and talk about his mental health with all of us today. So thank you, Morgan, for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This is
Hey, no
cool.
worries, buddy. No worries. I'm glad we could work it out.
Yeah.
All right, man. So just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, man. Who's Morgan Dunbar? Where are you from? What are you about? What are you doing now? Just that kind of stuff, so the listeners can get a better idea of who Morgan is.
Hmm. I don't know. I'm a lot of things at this point. I don't know. I'm trying my hardest. Uh, Musician, producer, engineer, um, Toronto based. These were all the kind of floating things, but uh, grew up in Fergus, Ontario, so not too far outside of Toronto.
Fergus Highland Games, shout out.
Yep, yeah, that was the startup. I was into uh, punky stuff. Led to playing drums. That was the main instrument starting up. I was instantly writing songs on an upside down guitar and a ukulele and whatnot, whatever I could get my hands on. Um, did the band thing pretty hard there with a group called 17 Excuses, which was a funny little thing. All me writing just weird, angsty little like kind of post punk songs and stuff. Yeah, we did a bunch of shows and stuff with that. I started working at a little studio in Guelph. Around the same time, I started working at like a little record label in Drayton. And just doing weird little intern stuff at both places for a while. And then it was off to Fanshawe to, I feel like I'm like reading a novel or something. This
Keep
is
going, man. Keep going. I love it.
But I went to Fanshawe, day one met Phil, literally even before day one. It was like a weird orientation thing. Someone made the joke that we should be a two-piece band, and it like started right there.
Nice.
So we did that super hard. We did the single series thing. I feel like that's what kind of pushed us right off the bat, was just doing 2 songs a month for like 8 months or whatnot in college, just some stupid stuff. And then so many shows, so many basement shows. That's like the funnest thing. I missed that for sure. And then moved to Toronto after school. We've been hustling here for a while. We got the home studio going, indie record label going.
Yeah, what's the name of the record label?
Human Tourist Records. That is it.
There you go, man.
Yep. Couldn't tell you what it means. Couldn't tell you anything about it. But
hell yeah,
Human Tourist Records.
Good sales pitch.
Yep, sounds cool. Sounds cool. So yeah,
Nice.
we've been putting out records for a while here now. And did the first solo record, 2019. That was the Island TV release.
Yeah.
Just put out Island Radio. That's where we're at. Yes.
Nice, man. So that's a little slice of Morgan.
Yeah, that's the background. That's up to date. Here we are.
Nice, man. Well, thank you for that. Just so the listeners get to know a little bit more about you before we jump into more about you.
Yes. Nobody know already, so I'm condensing it for the people.
Well, for those that like listening that might not know who you are, right?
Yeah. Miss the tidbits.
Exactly. So, Mr. Morgan, I like to ask my guests before we jump into mental health stuff, because obviously it could be a sensitive subject matter sometimes for people. And I always talk to the guests beforehand, obviously, and ask for consent, if before they even get on the show. But I always like to ask again while we're recording the episode, how they're feeling today. Are they feeling okay? Are they feeling, safe, able to talk about their mental health openly on the pod today? So, Morgan, are you okay to talk about this kind of stuff today?
Yes. Thank you for extending the not warning, but open setting. I love that. Feel very safe.
Cool, man.
So I feel like I don't talk about my mental health a lot. I don't know. So
I was gonna say, this will be the first time that you and I've actually openly talked about it, I think.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm glad that you came on the pod to do it.
Yeah.
I think by the end of this podcast, we'll be closer as pals, maybe. I think.
Absolutely. I think that's inevitable.
That effect has happened over the last couple of episodes with other people that I've interviewed, so I'm sure it'll do the same for us.
Yeah. Talking for a good hour on camera, I'll change someone.
I wish we could do this in person, but there's this thing going around. I don't know if you heard.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there, man. Okay, buddy. So let's dive in. So let's tell listeners what mental health struggles or illnesses do you deal with, buddy?
Ooh, I feel like different times it could be so many different things.
Yeah.
Coming and going. I've never gotten any diagnosis C's or whatnot.
Right.
Other than dyslexia. That's the one thing that I can, and that's its own kind of bundle of worms, but they're definitely related at times. But at any given moment, it can fluctuate quite a lot. I feel like there's some constants.
So what's like a baseline for you? Like what's the average feelings that you deal with?
I feel like, well, it's all so through self-diagnosis, which
of course, yeah,
we'll go there.
Whatever you feel like you deal with.
Yeah, no, I've definitely, have massive waves of depression at times. That's inevitable. Like social anxiety is probably the forefront along those lines. Just like the drainingness of interaction. I've got some pretty like wacky phobias, and that's like triggered into daily life in some ways.
Interesting.
Like I'm like the most squeamish person you'll ever meet, I'm sure.
Oh, really?
Like we'll pass out, we'll vomit at movies even, like there's no.
Wow.
without warning, really, it can just like shoot too.
So you're not
So
watching any of the Saw movies.
no, I have. We've done that. Yeah, and it goes in periods too. There's like I can be super just like numbed down sometimes, and then it'll work. I'll go through a period too where I'll be like super feeling edgy and be watching a lot of horror movies and be in that vibe, and then I can super get desensitized, and it's fine. It's like let's go for it. And then
Okay.
like it's just been so long since I've been in that state that it's like you could just trigger me so easily and just like oh my god.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
there will be a while. There's some certain little weird things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the main two, I guess the main two that we'll focus on moving forward in the conversation is just, depression, which is obviously a big one for a lot of people, and social anxiety too, eh, buddy?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we were recording, I guess, but talking earlier about shows and navigating just an entire evening of social or whatnot, especially now after COVID. Like, yeah, that's so
spending a year isolated without talking to too many people and then having to go back to a real world after this. Especially for someone that deals with social anxiety like yourself, like that's going to be a challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's been nice, but it's been like cozying up to that. It's like it's easy to be a hermit, easy to chill in my own home, do nothing, just make music, work on stuff, whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, it's gonna be a push. It's funny, I already know that like there's so many, like just like having the session the other day, like I missed this entirely, but just like completely zonked after like any session. It's like we'll have a day of work with some other people, and now that COVID's happened, it's like I got like one shot at it, and then it's like okay,
wow,
let's go. I feel like for better or worse, but like
yeah,
that'd be choice with the social situations now. Yeah, it's funny.
Interesting, man. So you kind of answered my next question already, but I'll ask it anyways just to make sure. So you said you haven't been diagnosed at all with anything, eh?
No.
And then the rest of my question was just like, if you haven't been diagnosed, what do you feel like you have? And I think you just explained it, obviously. Do you think you would be curious into getting some sort of diagnosis?
Absolutely, yeah. It definitely, and I think earlier saying like just the waves of like at any moment there could be a different thing that triggers on like in a totally different vibe. I don't know, some manic stuff, but so like at any like I feel like monthly or essentially I'll have a different kind of diagnosis in my head that's like yeah I think it's more related to this or whatever,
Right.
And it's funny, there's like so many, it's like every week there'll be a different thing. I'm like, like I've had some trouble like eating this week, maybe it's like related to that, maybe it's like a gut thing, it's like
Whoa.
I'll just tell myself it's something. So a little hypochondriac-y in
Yeah,
there.
that sounds like it could be that.
It makes it tough. What was the question? Where do we go?
I was just asking, like, would you like to get a diagnosis?
Would I? Yes, absolutely. It comes in the periods of like when I'm fine and like I feel like I'm in a very good place right now where things have been going well. Have had somewhat kind of consistent scheduling and how I've been working right now.
Yeah.
So like it nothing seems imperative that I need to do or sort or whatnot. But then there will be a time that it's like okay, the bottle's open, like got to do this, and I've just had a good habit of either like bottling that or like finding that time, and it's like okay, like do something to, I guess like artistic expression is like all of it. So in some ways it like anytime that happens I'm like okay, just go like craft that into what needs to happen or whatnot. But I think I'm at the point now where it's like next time anything major happens like that, it's like there's no, I'm not toying around now. Like who cares? Like get some help, talk to some people. Like I'm finally at a stage where that's something I can say and would do.
That's great, man. It takes a lot to get to that point where you have to do that, like, internalization thinking, the thinking of self versus just like you said, distracting yourself from the situation, or like it comes on and like you're like nope, and then you just push it down and you move forward without dealing with it because your brain's telling you like, oh, like this happens to me all the time, like I'll get over it, then like you're okay for the next month, but then it comes back up again, you're like and you're like it's just a vicious cycle.
And it's crazy what feels normal and then someone will come into your life that doesn't understand certain things or whatever. And it's I feel like especially the gore thing is the incredible one because it's like so simple. Is that like I like probably within 1 day of meeting someone, like I'll sneak in the fact that that's a thing just in case. Because like someone's gonna whip out their phone and be like, "Look at this broken leg," or something. I'll be like, "Dude, just like stay away." And it's so funny, like, and that's like I don't think about it, but like that's a powerful thing. Like that's that's something I need to deal with hardcore. And it's
Yeah,
there's
man.
deal with that until well, I mean, other than biting down on it and getting in. So I feel like I'm one of
What's
there's definitely like this mountain ahead that's like okay, we're ready, we're approaching it, but like damn, this is gonna take some time to chip through.
Of course, of course. And like there's a section in this podcast we'll definitely tackle that for sure. So I don't want to get too much into it.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
save it for that segment. I do want to ask Morgan, um, what has your experience been like or your perspective of dealing with these mental health illnesses or struggles? So the way I like to break it down to guess is just like give me like a timeline or like give the listeners like a timeline of like when this shit started happening to you. Like when did you first
Yeah,
started noticing the signs of these things kicking in, like your social anxiety perhaps or the depression or your phobias? Like is there like a moment in time where you can go back and be like, oh yeah, like it started around this time, or did something happen in your childhood or something like that brought it on? Maybe like work from there, and then yeah, tell us your experience. Like,
totally. Yeah. Yeah, there's like the baseline factors. Like I was a super creative little kid, super like ridiculous imagination to the point where I would like terrify myself for no reason, but like just because I could, like, it's like I could think of these scenarios, so screw it, like let's go. Um, and eventually that, that's a stressful thing as a kid or whatever. Um, but I was super bubbly, like a lot more kind of, super excited kind of vibe. I was like and then that was my like my line as a kid. It was just like and then it's like this happened and then this happened and this. And it's so funny how that like has shifted. But I would say like I mean feeling social anxiety. I don't think I would have pointed it out, but there's definitely like as a kid, it's just like very like outcast syndrome, I guess. Like okay, this is humans operate one way, and I'm like looking at that from the outside, like okay, this
mm,
is this is interesting. Like it's weird how people do this. I think by like never would have like classified it at the time or whatever, like thought about what was going on. But definitely by like grade 10, I was fully like depression swing. Like I remember one period where I just noticed I was like, damn, this is like extra dark. Like we're just in a dark timeline right now. And it was like the deepest of like my like hardcore listening kind of stuff. And like just the darkest music period, the darkest like I don't know, relationship period in some ways, just like bad high school drama stuff like way too early. I feel like that's kind of the vibe. It was just like I'm like, what, you're like 15 or something, 16. It's like, why
mm-hmm.
am I dealing with all these very mature things, like, crazy, the adultness of these youthful relationships.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I had no idea, but I was like, okay, like I have seen everyone in my family essentially like struggle with a different mental health ailment, like in some way.
Okay.
And very kind of like unique in their ways. So I knew like well, yeah, and I think I was looked outside of that. It was like I knew these people are classified like everything. I think everyone in my family has been diagnosed with something like in some way, or maybe not, but like or at least been through like like addiction or whatever, and had that classified. Like okay, this is something we're dealing with as a family or whatnot. So I always like still stayed outside of that somehow, and like I never had a stigma that it was just like this wasn't for me or like I wasn't related to this or something. You know what I mean? Like there was never I always knew like okay yeah like depression and anxiety like these are obviously like in me, that's not a but it was like I can see some people where it's really serious, or I can see like how bad this looks in some person, or like I can see how this like addiction really goes off in certain ways, like,
Mm-hmm.
and it just never felt like I was in proportion to any of that. It was like I'm chilling, I'm a bright kid, like it's fine. And
Okay.
then at grade 10 it was like I don't think I realized how dark I was in relation to a lot of things like that. um and that kind of came and went, and like we'd have little pockets and more like manic things. Like I'm thinking like definitely like little episodes of like never like hitting people, but like punching walls and stuff, and just little
Mm.
manic outbursts. And super aggressive. And I think artwork is always that. Like I go through like sketching periods, and I'll just like sketch a lot of like messed up stuff for a while, and I'm like, okay, good, we got that out. Just
Yeah.
nasty stuff I like didn't want to think about. It's on paper, I'll get rid of it or whatever. Like good to
Sure.
go.
Where do you think that stemmed from, Morgs?
Oh, I think it's just like family breakdown kind of vibes.
Like, are your parents still
Like
together, or were they
yeah, no,
divorced?
parents split,
Right.
messy family, like
Messy
effect.
divorce.
Yeah, and like lots of like addiction surrounding it, like cheating and like a bunch of
Oh
just
God.
nasty stuff that like kids shouldn't be thinking about or whatever.
Right. And what age were you when that was going down?
I was, I think we were like affected probably like grade 8 onwards, and it feels like
So it's like
still like
12, 13.
yeah, something like that.
So you're pretty young.
Yeah, yeah. It feels it's funny when you think like so many parents of this generation are divorced like that. It's like so
Mhm.
common that to me it just felt like it was like, okay, like it's time for our family. It's like, okay, like we've hit the queue for what most people hit at some point.
Is
And
that is that you talking in retrospect, or is that you putting
no, that was
yourself
what
in
I
the
felt
shoes of at the
kind of.
time?
Yeah, because I was like I was in that kind of dark period with other stuff in my own like just relationships and whatever, like schooling and whatnot. And
Yeah.
then this just going super hard with the family. And like there was a period where it's like in the same year, like the parents officially split. We heard about it. Our dog died, our Nana died, and then like both our cats the following year like
Oh
trailed
man.
off. It was like
So loss
okay.
after loss after
And it was like
loss.
just the middle of high school. And I'm like, hey, I'm trying to do stuff. Like, what the hell is going on? But
Right.
like look back on that time, really it just like I think about like just the music that was going on at the time and what I was listening to and like what because I was just so involved. Like as soon as anything happened, I was like, headphones on, let's listen to a record. Like, let's go do something. Like let's
Right.
yeah. So I feel like it's all just kind of just transferred. All the energy just went there and it's like, okay, this is what's happening. Um yeah. And today, and that's still kind of it today. It's like just transferring energies into music as I can. Jeez.
Yeah, it seems like you developed that outlet at a very young age when you had to, and
And it's
it saved you back then, and now that's all you know how to do. And so like you just keep doing it because it's all you know how to do, right?
pretty much. And it's like sometimes it does the trick, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Does it
guess.
always do the trick though, or is there ever
I,
times where it's not enough?
well, I just look back on times then where I was like aggressive, and it's like I'm not a violent person. Like I don't. I'm good at not letting it get to that or whatever. But just like
Yeah.
anytime I was just like a jerk because of anything or like bad relationships and stuff. It's like
Sure.
that. There's a lot of time where it's like I just didn't realize like, dude, like you are depressed, like you are super anxious, like you are not taking care of yourself. Like what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. It's like you just there's too many things in the moment that are
Sure.
present. No, like I'm in college or whatever. It's like I'm busy. Like I'm getting rent. Like I don't have time for mental illness. Like that's not how it works, kid. Like come on.
Yeah. Isn't that such a bad habit to have? I mean, I guess you don't really know at
Yeah.
that age too, right? You're still trying to figure everything out, and like you're just
Mhm.
like trying to deal with one thing at a time.
Yeah. I'm sure
And
that's
then
now I'll think about right now. I'll be like, dude, like what are you doing? Go to that therapy. Like, dude, what are you waiting for? And you're like,
yeah,
I have things to do. I don't know.
I think it just
That,
comes with age and experience more. Because I think it's just like because I felt the same way too when I was younger and dealing with my shit. I felt like I wasn't very good at being healthy in terms of my mental health, which I feel like a lot of kids aren't because I mean, they probably just don't know what it is that they're going through.
yeah.
They're just unaware, right? And they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to cope in a healthy way, at least, right? I mean, it's good that you poured yourself into music at least, so that
Mm-hmm.
was your outlet. For me, it was drugs.
Fair. I mean, I can semi attribute to that. Yeah. Like,
So, and I'm sure you've had your fair bit of that as well. So,
yeah, drugs, alcohol.
whatever your vice of choice is, but
Mm-hmm.
we all have vices that we lean on, especially when we're going through early trauma that we don't know how to deal with properly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we're just trying to drown out the voices in our head.
Yes. Yes.
That is the depression or the anxiety or whatever else you want to chalk it up to, right? But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a tough time for a lot of people, man.
Yeah. I mean, I feel pretty lucky throughout COVID. I feel like that's been kind of the general conversation around the house is that like we have been really lucky and having supportive roommates and
Right.
a good place to still express myself. And I feel like it has been just positive gains recently with with mental health, especially. It's like finding new outlets where it is not that making music all the time isn't positive, but
Hmm.
socializing is good too. Yoga's good, meditation, like there's
Yeah.
things that help, not just
Other methods to help you.
staring at the screen doing something. Yeah. So um yeah, I feel like it's been a kind of a positive turnaround time throughout COVID and
That's
kind of the
good,
perfect
man.
grounding time to hunker down and think about a lot of those things and and start at least putting in work and noting some things and thinking about all this. Yeah, it's
Yeah, man. I've noticed that too, especially like earlier. I guess I want to say like the first couple of months into this weird pandemic time when we were like
yeah,
lockdown, you know? I think a lot of people did a lot of self realization and a lot of diving deep into themselves because there really just wasn't anything else to do except for that.
exactly.
You
It's
know, so people found out a lot about themselves in this time, you know, like what they were
mhm,
ignoring before, you
yeah,
know, bubbled up, and now there's nothing to distract you because you either lost your job or you're working from home or whatever your
mhm,
situation was, right? It's not what you would normally be doing, and you can't go and see your friends or go out for like drinks on the weekend or go to a concert or whatever you used to do before, right? To distract yourself from the pain of whatever you were dealing with. And then, you got told to stay home, and that's when all this shit starts rising up in you, and you're like, whoa, what is all this? Is this all the shit I haven't been dealing with?
yep. Oh, absolutely.
you
Yeah,
know? Did you find that that happened to you, Morgs, during this time?
yeah, for sure. There's like the back and forth waves. I think in some ways the starting was definitely like almost just this like it kind of felt like a summer break school thing and like not I know that's super like privileged to say because we had such a unique situation. Like I was still
Sure.
working the whole time. Things were still decent here. But like it was like just stepping into like, okay, all this has been going on, all this stress and like keeping up daily life and just like let's go, let's go. And I just like hadn't taken a break for a long time, I feel like, or like was still trying to just push. So it's just like a perfect like, okay, stop, like pause everything, like think about all the things that have been on your mind that hasn't been looked at. But it was almost like it was like good to do the like it was positive not being this like, oh my god, how do I stay alone or like how do I maintain a lifestyle like this? Like I was like not, I'm like very like happily will be an introvert and happily will like toddle away at home and like make like the quarantine didn't really like, especially me and Jesse, it was like nothing changed. We're just like sitting at home. We have
Right.
the roommate gamer for sure. And it's like we're just sitting back to back, like making music on one screen, gaming on the other, like doing our stuff or whatever.
Right.
Um, so that felt like totally normal at first, and it was nice to not have to. Because I feel like then it's like for me, it's like the anxiety is like pulling out when it's like, okay, so like there's a show on Friday that's yours or something. You have to go to your friend's show on Saturday, and like there's a someone wants to come on Thursday or whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's 3 days straight of like stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
what can I? And it's like that's nothing. And thinking about school days and stuff, it's like trying to cram projects out and make us like there's so many times it's been so fast paced or whatever, and it's now thinking like doing one session and I was like zonked out afterwards, and it's like well, like a 5 hour day is tiring now. Like that's trash. That's good.
Yeah.
But I feel like then it's like it's nice and honest. Everything feels really honest right now, where it's like there's no issue with time. Like everyone has some space to be themselves and be free with timing, and like
Mm-hmm.
you still have some leeway. Like we're not rushing back to things, which is cool.
Right. Right. What were some of the biggest things that you were reflecting on in this time? I know you said you did some reflection. Like, what were some of the things that you thought about? Just the listeners having an idea of what you were trying to break down in yourself during this time.
Yeah. I think it's been a lot of like relationship stuff. I've been single for like the longest time I've ever been single in my teen to adult life or whatever, like in the past like few years,
Okay.
uh, which has been pretty sick. I'm finally now at a point I feel like where it's like,
you're embracing it more than being like,
yeah, like now it's turning around. We're like, no, like I'm fairly confidently single. Like, this is kind of cool. Like we may do this for a while, but I feel like I just like paused on the emotions of that, and even like previous relationships. It's like as soon as it stopped or whatever, I was like, okay, pause, like screw that, like moving forward, like Jesus. And there's like a lot of weight there, obviously. Like those are huge. And I was like dating the same person throughout all of college and the end of high school, and
wow.
that was a big toll, which I didn't really think of too much at the time. It was like I thought about it a lot, obviously, but it was like just rapid movements. Let's go, like change it up.
Mhm.
And
How many years was that? Four years?
That was 4, I think, like going on 5 years or something when we
That's a big
wrapped it
chunk.
up. And stuff.
It's a big chunk of your
And then
life,
it was
man.
a weird, choppy ending kind of thing, which like there's no date I could tell you when it ended or whatnot. It was like just the messiest. Like who knows?
Right.
No.
I'm sure that didn't help either. I'm sure.
No, like no real like closure in a good way.
Yeah.
And then of course like we like made music together for a period of time there, which was
Right.
that was the closure.
Was that Field Notes? Sorry, Morgan.
Yes, Field Notes. No, of course. Yeah. So that was kind of the closure, is doing this Field Notes project and like putting out these songs that kind of wrapped up the thing. But it's like painful, man. Like it's being the producer, producing a song you've written, it's about you, and it's not like positive. Like it's pretty messed up.
Oh man,
Like,
and then working on it with the person that it's about too.
You're like, my name's on this, and you're not like, oh my god. Yeah. But I think it's like a cool. I don't know anyone else that's done that and has a weird record out there to say it.
I mean, it's an experience, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's like a weird me thing, but I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody now.
I mean, at least you can walk away and be like, I did that. And like, it's just something that you can check off on the list of things done in Morgan's life.
Yeah. And if like you have a chance to make a record with an ex to sort it out in song, like that's so cool. Like that's
definitely an interesting way to do it.
But like protect yourself, because don't just do it for music, because like holy crap, that's right. There's all
it could get dicey. Could get very dicey. So you got to make sure you're both in a good headspace ish to do something like that, right?
Yeah. So.
Or that you both have consensual agreement that this is what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's not going to work out very well, I would imagine.
Yeah. And I mean that it all like we were lucky with it all, and we treated it nicely, and it wasn't too nothing messed up or anything. It was all good.
Sure.
But just it's funny looking back on. And
what was the after effect of that, like when everything was said and done, like when you guys went separate ways, and like was there like a moment where you sat down and was like, shit, there goes 5 years? Was that ever a thought, or was it just kind of like,
yeah, totally. But I don't think it was like a quick or like an initial thought. It was just the slow, like, okay,
slow burn.
Like, I haven't done these things on my own in like 5 years. Like, how do I? And it was just like work backwards. But at the same time, like throughout the relationship, like part of the negative was the fact that we were just both trying to like be independent all the time and like super just do what we wanted to do. So in some ways, it was just like, okay, now you're doing what you want to do all the time. Like, don't complain. Like, do it. Like, and that's maybe a positive, maybe a negative. And we're still kind of in that place where it's like very not self-centered, because I mean, essentially at this point I am the center of my life. There's not really a lot of that's maybe bad outlook. I don't know, you tell me, you judge me on that one.
Hey, I can't judge you. I'm just here to listen.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm here to give you a platform to speak.
Yeah. No, I feel it, and it is cool, and maybe that's the good thing, is that like I do feel centered in my life now. It's like, okay,
that's great. We're not
dependent on a person or anything.
Another person, yeah.
Still smoking a little too much, but we'll see.
All right, Morgan. Let's get to the next segment here. That was all great though. Thank you for sharing all that.
Cool.
So the next segment is I like to call this segment the Real Reels. The Real Reels.
Yeah.
This is basically the part of the podcast where we talk, if the guest is okay with talking about it, of course, some of the darker stuff, some of the stuff that doesn't get talked about in everyday life, or like something that's like not something you would open up to on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to normalize it on this podcast. because this shit's important. Like mental health is very important, especially in a time like this where we're all isolated and apart from each other and having to regrow as people, like we just
Hmm.
discussed in the last segment.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to break some barriers. I'm just trying to break some walls with this podcast and this segment in particular, and just break the taboo and the stigma that surrounds this. You know, like I openly talk about suicide because it's just something that needs to be talked about. Like it
Hmm.
can't be sugar coated. It just needs to
Hmm.
be discussed because guess what? It happens.
Yeah.
It happens more than you'd like to think it does.
Yeah. All too
And I'm,
much because not being discussed. Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm glad you agree. Um, and I'm sure not too many people know this because, again, it's just not talked about enough. Because guess what the focal point of the world is right now? COVID. You know, which is fair because it's a fucking huge ass
Yeah.
thing. And I'm not trying to play down what's happening,
Mhm.
but I don't think people realize that there are more deaths within the last year that are suicide related than COVID deaths
Mhm.
because of the effect of COVID.
I feel like I have heard that, but I'm glad you can
Yeah,
lay
you
it
can
out.
look it up. It's a
That,
fact. Like I'm not even making this up. Like you can actually
yeah.
just look it up and be like, yeah, there's more deaths
Mhm.
related to suicide because of COVID than the actual COVID death rate. And I'm not saying that COVID's bad. Like wear your mask, all that shit. Like
Yeah.
I'm not one of these fucking like conspiracy theorist bullshit people
Mhm.
that don't believe in this virus. Like it's awful. But like suicide has been around before COVID and it's still here and it
Mhm.
might be worse than it has ever been. You know what I mean? So point
Mhm.
being, I just want to make this segment about opening up about these things that aren't talked about in a normal day life, but like I want to make it to the point where like this can be talked about and
Mhm.
people can feel safe to talk about it without that kind of negative connotation surrounding it. You know what I mean? Or like that feeling of
Absolutely. Yeah.
being judged about talking about something like this because it's not talked about enough, right?
Mhm.
So, anyways, um,
That's cool. The
let's
real.
let's the real reels, yeah, exactly. So, Morgan, we touched upon it a little bit in the last segment, and before we get into like the dark, well, I mean, I guess this might lead to the dark. um,
Yeah.
I have a lot of experience with vices, as you know. So my question to you, Morgan, is: was there ever a time in your life where vices played a big role within your life?
Totally. Um,
And you can elaborate further if you want to, or
yeah. No, I mean, yeah, like drugs and alcohol have been somewhat consistent. Um, I've never been like I like certain things and I just don't like others, and I don't experiment a lot. Like we've done a couple of here and there things, but like I've never been like consistently like a whatever like cokies or something like. And drinking, it's like I have a really limited palate. I hate beer, which is like a really good thing for me. I think it's like
I
the
know this
best.
about you, yeah.
Yeah, I just never. I've tried to like have a beer and enjoy it, and I just hate it. I just
Trust me, it's a good thing you don't like beer.
yeah. People always say that, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but like it sounds like a great
Speaking as
thing.
a beer lover myself, it's just good that you don't.
Yeah. So I feel like there's certain things where I'm like, okay, I'm like lucky on that, but then it's like, okay, then it comes back to like weed or something. It's like, okay, still
Yeah.
not that. That's still a habit I'm not. Sorry, can you hear that? Is that?
Yeah, you're oh, was that somebody ringing?
No, it's actually my email, which is the funniest thing in the world and the most annoying thing in the world too. I don't think I've ever changed any of my iPhone things. I hope you can. There you go. Okay, it's done. But every
Okay.
time I get an email, that happens. I have like a 30-second song that's like, and it'll be like whatever, Vintage King or something like that. And I'm like, okay, what is this? Like, it's a stupid. Um, but vices. Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah,
and also
man.
what you consider a vice, because like
It could be
I'm probably
anything.
most
Like, what
probably
do you?
most addicted to sugar and tea. That's my like two
That's your
biggest.
that's your vice.
It's like that, and then like weed or whatever. But it's like, dude, I'm 2 cups of tea in the morning or whatever. Like as soon as I start, like I'm not skipping that, and like feel yeah, I'll get a lot of sugar in me if I can, but try to
Right.
be better at that, try to do more.
I'm talking more about like
Really, yeah. I don't
like
smoke
I'm not trying to
cigarettes.
dismiss those things. I'm just saying like was there a point where like because you had mentioned earlier in the pod that you were like dealing with a lot of stuff, with your parents and with your social anxiety kicking in around high school, somewhere around there, right? You said,
Mhm.
and you bottling things up and repressing things and not dealing with them or channeling them in another way, like an outlet, like music, like you said, but not really dealing with it. You know,
Yeah.
was there a moment where like you found yourself, like if music wasn't enough, or like you didn't feel like doing music or whatever? Was there a point in your life where vices became that outlet? Was there ever a moment like that?
Um, I think it's become at times like associated with that. Like it'll be like I'm thinking like a stretch of shows or something. It's like you're psyched off it, and then eventually it's like okay, like maybe there's a great party afterwards, and let's get that's the cooler kind of thing then of the whatever, and then maybe that's the night you try a line or something. And it's like, okay, well I've never done that, and now it's a new. Um, but like I'm not a big risk taker really. I guess like I'm pretty neutral, so it's more like it would be like weed, and it's like I have a habit of smoking in the mornings. I find at certain times, and I know that's like a lot of people frown on that super hard. And it's like a toss up. It's like, and now that it's legal in a lot of ways, it's like it's people. You find your own thing, you make your own debate or whatever. But
Right.
like I don't know, it comes and goes. I'm like these things are helpful, and then I'm like these things are not helpful at all. Like it's
Right.
and like drinking, it's I I've never had like a real problem in like a that I would point out, I guess, in myself as another person and say, like, yeah, you got to do some shit. But I could say
Sure.
there's like in me where it's like, you're just doing this to like get fucked up, or you're just doing this to continue this thing or whatever. And especially, I think the real problem there with me is the health attributed to that is like if you are someone that passes out occasionally or throws up when their stomach's like not good, like you're the last person that should be drinking a lot of alcohol or smoking a lot of whatever. It's like
Yeah.
those little things where I'm like, so when I do like get in a super bad situation where I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna pass out like an Uber or something. That's like what is happening right now, and I'm like, probably shouldn't be like stoned and drunk right now. Like, come on, kid. Like, if you're the kid that's gonna like have epilepsy or somewhere, like, dude, don't. What are you messing with? So, I feel like
Right.
those are times where it's like it's getting the better. Just the fact that it's there. I don't know.
Do you feel like your phobias kind of save you in that regard then?
Phobias save you.
Yeah, because you talked about like how like if you like drinking alcohol, if you drink too much would lead to throwing up, which would trigger your phobia
Yeah.
of your,
I,
you said you had a weak stomach. So like, do you feel like your phobia kind of like prevents you from getting that far
in some ways, I
in
mean,
a weird
definitely
way?
when it comes to drinking, it's like I just have a like separately from the squeamish thing. It's like I just have a horrible stomach in general. Like,
Right.
I don't drink beer or whatever, so I'll drink either hard liquor or like ciders and stuff. And it's like,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
no, not good. So it's like I'm not drinking a lot of any of that stuff, anyways. Like I'm not I at times I've been a heavier drinker, and it's usually just to keep up. It's always like a social situation. I'm like, okay, let's go. Like we're going hard or whatever. But
Mm.
I'm
Is
not good.
that part of the social anxiety?
Oh sure, sure.
Yeah,
I
like
find,
having
like
other
when
people around you. Sorry, go ahead.
oh no. It's like baseline when I'm super sober. I'm a lot more talkative, kind of generally communicative. And then if I'm smoking, I'm like dead quiet. I'm like, and that's what most people I think know me as or whatever, because that's a kind of baseline for me in some ways. So it's like
Sure.
I'm a chill, relaxed person or whatever, and that's usual. I kind of like that about myself, or whatever, like that state. But as soon as I'm drinking, it's like it reverts back to the like socialite trying to party thing, and it's like
Mm.
that's the dangerous guy. But
And then.
exactly, and then it just becomes like, what are you doing? Like wearing three sunglasses, and you're like, dude, no, that's.
Right.
Hmm.
Interesting, man. Interesting.
I don't think other vices though. Like what?
I mean, if there aren't any more, that's cool. It was just a question I wanted to ask.
What I'm like either missing or what I don't. How I don't know. Yeah, we can move on from that. Who knows?
We covered it. We covered it.
Mhm.
Some Morgs, what are some of the hardest moments, or some of the darkest periods of your life, or like the negatives caused by uh the mental health stuff that you've had to deal with in your life? Like, can you take us back to some of the hardest moments you had to go through in relation to your mental health.
The highlight reel. Jeez. Um,
If it's not too much.
no. I'll try to like pick out some things. I feel like I don't have a great memory, and especially when it comes to negatives, it's like
It's buried.
yeah. Well, I'm definitely like a blocker outer in some ways, but it's like
Sure.
memory's so hazy that's like you could tell me, then it's like it would retribute a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one really dominant one is one time at this like barn kind of thing. And there's a horse that sat on a tractor in some weird way, and there was like I won't recount it too much because I'll start bugging, but basically this horse really damaged its leg in front of me, and I was the only one around, and
Right.
it was just a huge issue, and it started bleeding everywhere, and this huge, like I was just alone with this massive horse, and it was an expensive horse, and I knew that. It was just all these weird things that I was like, and I'm an animal person in the fact that I like them and I like will respect whatever, but I'm not like a big cuddly, like, you know, I don't want to, I'll hang out with your dog, but like I'm not a horse person or anything. There's no way.
Sure.
So it's just so irresponsible to leave this animal with me. There's just so many things that I was like, why did this happen? Like, this is so messed up. And that definitely, when it comes to the gore phobias and those triggers, like
Sure. Yeah.
I'd say that's pretty much it, because that never got addressed, and that was just like a look away, Morgan, and then it was like I don't even know. I couldn't tell you what happened. It was like just okay, back home. Like who knows? Like what the fuck was that? Like who?
Wow. How old were you when that happened?
That would have been like grade. Still, like it's that kind of grade 9, 10 area. So
Okay.
right, that really
So
that was
like
the really
early
that was
teens.
the soft spot. Yeah. So that was a really weird. Like I still can't like I can't quite dig that all the way. Like that's a lot of the gore stuff. Is just when I retell that story, I'm like, okay, that's where a lot of that passion is. Like that's
Yeah.
crazy.
I mean, that's a traumatic thing to witness. I can
Yeah,
imagine
it was
where
just
that stems from,
yeah,
or
it was
why it
just
stemmed from that, you know?
really messed up. And it's just funny now thinking like I was. It felt like at the time it was just this like, okay, you're just stuck in this situation. And now looking back and like all these things were like, who are all these adults that this is like how this ended up? There's like this like 14-year-old kid with a like what like so weird to me now, just how that all. But I'm thinking other gore things like that way, and I'm sure this is not a very relatable thing, not a lot of people, but also can't like when you look up gore phobias and like really aggressive how that relates to mental health, like you don't find there's no facts on it. The best facts I find are the most relatable stuff for me is always nursing students. Like I love
Right.
about nursing students that are like, how do you deal with this? Like I can't do this every day. And it's like, okay, that's what I need to hear, you know?
That's their job, right? Or
Yeah, and it's because
supposed to
you
be their
always have
job.
these kids that are a month into schooling or whatever, and they're like, I've seen so much nasty stuff, and I have no idea how to process this. And you're like, okay,
Yeah.
here's how or whatever. So
And
that's
like,
usually
where's the help for that, right? Like, where do they go to talk about that kind of shit? Because
couldn't tell you.
they're seeing stuff that nobody should see,
Yeah,
or
I couldn't tell
nobody
you a
normally
group
sees,
that
right?
discusses this or anything. I have no idea.
And you had to
Uh,
deal with seeing that poor horse go through what it went through at an early age, and and just deal with it
yep,
and not
just
have an outlet for it or not, you know. And
yeah,
then like, no wonder you developed a fucking phobia of it.
get gore stuff. Yeah,
You're traumatized by it.
I'm thinking there's some other like younger childhood stuff where like I was the kid that like fell off the swing set and like cracked his skull or whatever. Or, like just I was the kid bleeding around the school essentially. I don't know why. That was my
Me too. I can relate to that.
right. But I was also the squeamish kid then, so it was the worst
Oh
nightmare for me.
no.
I remember like being like when I was losing my teeth, like as a kid, I was just terrified the whole time, pretty
Oh
much.
no.
This is a nightmare. Like, why is this a part of life? Like, why would your teeth leave your head? It's nasty. And now when I think about it, it's like just as bad. I'm like,
Oh
God,
man.
what a bad phase of life.
Have you had that teeth dream yet?
All the time. Not all the time. That was bold to say, but yes.
I have it every night.
Oh, God,
You've
no.
had that dream though. I've never had that dream.
No? Okay.
No, and like apparently it's like pretty common,
I think it must be, yeah. Like,
but I've just never had it.
yeah.
I'm thankful because it sounds awful.
Have you
And
had a relative? Do you have like a go-to stress dream or something?
like my dream,
Yeah. Do you
like
have any like,
like a recurring dream or something.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so here's a weird story. I'll try to make this short because it's the episode's about you.
Yeah.
But I had like a premonition dream which was something I can't explain to this day, and I haven't been able to explain it. And I've told Lena this. I think I've told a few other friends this, but for the listeners listening, here you go, and Morgan. So this is like the only reoccurring dream I've ever had, honestly. And I've had the falling nightmares. I think everybody has those, the nightmare when you're falling and stuff. I've had
Yeah.
those. I've had all the common nightmares, just except for not the teeth one, right? But this dream specifically was I was in a car in the dream, and I kept driving past this farm with like a big oak tree in the field. It was like a big red barn with like a blue truck parked out front and a big oak tree with like letters carved in it. And I could see the letters carved in it. I don't remember what they were, but there was letters carved in the tree, right? I'd never been to this place, right? Like it wasn't from memory because sometimes your dreams can just breathe like memories or something.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
never been to this place. Like my dream was making up this place. And I can tell you for a fact, I've never seen this barn, never seen this field, never seen this tree in my life, right? It was just an imaginary place that my dream had come up with. And I kept seeing it every night for a month. I kept having the same dream of
Ooh.
this barn, of the field with the tree for like a straight month. It kept coming in my dreams. It would either be at the beginning of my dream or the end of my dreams when I wake up. Like at some point in the night, I'd have the dream. And then after the month, it happened like sporadically throughout the rest of the year. Like it'd be like once a month, twice a month, but it kept coming for a whole year, right?
Mm.
And then I don't know, it just stopped. Like a year went by of me having this recurring dream, and then the next year it just stopped happening. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I guess I never had that because it dawned on me. I was like, oh yeah, I haven't had that dream about the barn or the field in a while. You
Yeah.
know,
Remember waking
I
life?
remembered the visual, right? And I'm like, oh, I haven't had that in a while. What happened to that dream? Because it stopped happening. Morgan, I shit you not, the next month after me thinking about not having that dream for a while, I'm in my uncle's truck, and him and I are going up to Peterborough to visit my grandpa. Haven't been to Peterborough in years, right? At this point, or maybe like a year. And so my uncle's driving, and I'm in the passenger seat, and we're driving, and we take the same route every time, right? Like I know this route off the back of my head. I could drive it myself. The road was closed that we normally would take, and we had to go a different way up to Peterborough. Never been down this way before. Like I said, we always take the same route every time. We've never gone off and done a different route. This one day we go up, the route's closed. So we had to take a different route to Peterborough. Morgan, we take this different route to Peterborough, and I pass this fucking barn verbatim in my dreams.
So cool.
Red barn, blue truck, oak tree with lettering on it. Like perfectly the way I saw it in my dream. In reality, we drove past it. And I'd never seen this before, Morgan. I was like, I was freaking out. And my uncle looks over, he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, okay, can we pull over for a second?
Yeah, you just stop. Yeah.
It was such a weird fucking moment, man. And I was like, you're not gonna believe this, but I've seen this barn before. He's like, how? I'm like, I don't know how. It's in my fucking dream, and it's been in my dream for a year. It's just weird, man. But yeah, if that answers your question, I don't know.
Cool. That's a good one.
Crazy story, man. But yeah.
Kidding.
But to get back to you, Morgan, what about the depression? Like, was there ever a dark place in terms of that?
It's all just like the consistent lulls. So I'm thinking like, yeah, like coming out of high school was just like a big kind of not super noticeable at the time, but just comparing it now to my earlier, like comparing it to how like bubbly I was as a child and stuff, it's like, damn, like things had taken a turn for sure. And then like it's just like the later periods as things got more serious in high school, things got way more serious, and like the depression kicked in, but things got more serious in college. The end of that, things really like set in again. I think, and then probably in some ways the worst of it was the transition kind of into Toronto here, like before anything was set up, before like I was like living partially out of my like mom's basement, partially out of this like ex-girlfriend's house in Toronto, like this very messy situation.
Right.
And then like working at, I don't know, it's like anytime I'm working a super factory-esque job, like I'm like super depressed. Like it just doesn't. I can't do like I like in some ways I like the routine shift work. Like I enjoy some facets of that, but it's like just not good. I remember I worked one period. It was the night shift from like 8 or from 12 to 8, and I would drive home like sun blaring at me after like this night, and then go back to like teach drum lessons as well for whatever from like noon to like 3 or something, like way too early. Just like I was just like killing myself, and then would
Whoa.
try to do sessions or whatever in between, and then go out again. And it's like I was just on autopilot, so I don't really know. Like I didn't really wasn't
Sure.
at the time, um, but it was just like a nightmare. Like there's no way I should be working
Yeah,
nights.
you're just burning yourself out.
Yeah, yeah, physically not doing well, and then living at the mom's house, I was like, this is just not like love my mom to death, fantastic, but like
Sure.
it's so much of the time like trying to drink, but like also being back in the hometown where nothing's really going on. So I feel like
Right.
transitioning from like being in London or Toronto, like with clubs and whatever, it's like in Fergus, there's not that scene. It's like you're hanging out with friends, you're hanging out with whatever, like,
Lots
and
of fields.
yeah, and I feel like that's one thing that's fairly consistent. Like I'm good with musical partnerships and like teams and stuff, but like when it comes to maintaining friendships outside of that, like not great at that. It's not my strong suit, you know. Like
Right.
I hate to say it, but like I'm not the best at that. So I definitely have like I didn't hold on to high school friends the same way I think most people did, or even college friends. It's like there's certain people, but I didn't really like. It's like I was working on projects the whole time. Like I was trying to do stuff, which limited it, but whatever. So I feel like the worst of it in some ways was then like that all kind of collapsing. And it's like, okay, so there is no social structure of school. There is no like obvious shows happening right now. Like you don't have a job, like you're in between stuff like that. That's dark.
Right.
And I feel like
Yeah.
I always attribute a lot of the deepest lows are always like money related in some ways, which is horrible. But like when money,
Like financial stress.
of course, yeah. And
Yeah.
like luckily things are good, but like when when it's $0 in the bank, like which has happened a couple times, it's like, man, like
Yeah,
I
it's
feel like my
stressful.
worth attached to that is like when I have money, there's nothing. I don't attach myself to money at all. Like, I hate money. I don't care. I don't, it doesn't concern me at all. But as soon as
Hmm.
the money's gone, I'm like, I'm bad with myself because I'm like, dude, like, what are you doing? That's,
Isn't that a weird complex that we have?
yeah, it's so bad. It's like as
Maybe
soon
not
as money,
everyone can relate to this, but like I know I kind of get that too. In terms of money, like I don't really care that much about money when it comes to day-to-day stuff until like bills need to be paid or like something needs to happen financially and I'm like, fuck,
I
that's
guess.
all the money I have.
Yeah,
And you start like self-doubting your like things that you're doing, like your job isn't enough, or like you don't have a job, let's say, or
yeah.
you're between jobs or whatever, like whatever your situation is, and then you're like, oh my god, like what am I doing with my life? I don't have any fucking money, like
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah, and depression
yeah,
kicks in pretty hard in those moments.
yeah. And I think then it's funny though, like what you can focus on. I think that's definitely a reason why I haven't ever spent the time to get diagnosed or anything. Is because each of these times where I think back and I'm like, okay, when was this at its worst? And it's like that definitely would have been probably like the second or third wave of depression. That's like this is when it's like serious. Um, and it's like, well, I'm not addressing it because I'm looking for work or like I'm looking for the next place to rent or like what the situation is. So that's tough. And I feel like that's kind of what's the worst thing about healing, I suppose, is like you can only do it when it is possible. And like you can't
Hmm.
have that consistently. Not everyone can do that. Like
It's very tough.
that,
Yeah.
that's a privilege. Like that sucks. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
man. To go back a bit before we move forward, funny. Um, but I just want to touch upon, we kind of, I don't say like glossed over it, but it does seem like a point in your life, like you said, that you've kind of, I don't want to say buried, but just pushed past. I'll say it that way.
Mhm.
Is going through the stuff you went through at a young age with your parents, because that can have a lot of effect on people.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I know you joked about it earlier, saying like even in the shoes you were in at that age, you were like, "Yep, this is just supposed to happen." Like they're supposed to be divorced, like, and it's crazy that you were already at that stage at that age of acceptance. Like you're just like, "Yep, this is supposed to happen." Like, well, like
in some
or
ways.
maybe you saw the signs coming. Obviously, like you were living in that place, I'm guessing, with them and seeing what was happening around you, and one thing leads to another, and I'm sure you could put the pieces together. Um, but you said like your parents dealt with addiction.
Yep, yep.
Was it
So
drugs, alcohol?
yeah, no, it was just alcohol, but the
Yeah.
family split, and it was like then there was just backtracking of like, oh, so the last 2 years there was this kind of like cheating and alcohol abuse kind of tying things together.
Oh
Um,
boy.
and like we didn't, I was at kind of a good age where I didn't really still had like I had my head in the sand really hard, still listening to just working on stuff, so I wasn't thinking or very actively in the like, super involved in the family, I guess at that point. Um, but like yeah, there's like little signs obviously throughout that it was like okay, like this is consistent or whatever, and then
Yeah.
when it was like an immediate like okay, this is what's happening, like dad is out of the house, like whatnot, like what's going on. I remember there was a time where
Did
it
it
was
happen
like
all of a sudden?
pretty much it was like a quick like he was at least like out of the house or whatnot, but then there was like a good year of who knows what, and then a year after that of like okay, not good, like moving forward, and then it was like I couldn't. It was like at least 7 years or something of them doing proceedings, like just ridiculous, like trying to figure out what they wanted to do. I don't know. And our
Yeah.
parents, I feel like, were both pretty bad at. Well, I mean, they like kept it to themselves, which was good, but they would just like sneak out little bits occasionally, which was
Right.
not good. And there was a whole period where like through pretty much the end of high school, like before leaving for college, like most nights, my mom was like crying in her room
Oh
alone, just like listening.
man.
And I remember like telling her that at one point, like she like, which I don't know, had some kind of question or whatever, and I just opened up to like, it's a real thing. Like that was like pretty much most nights what I was like listening to or whatever. It's like holy shit, I was like not.
That's a lot to go through, man.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like at that time too, thinking back like what was happening, it's like I was like cooking for myself because like my mom was just not at a place where that was
That
gonna
was
happen.
possible.
Like yeah, and like she because like she was instantly needing to go back to the workforce and stuff. So it's like,
Yeah.
damn, horrible timing.
So you had to grow up pretty fast
Yeah.
then.
And then both the sisters are both older and they both left the house at the exact same time. Like it was like the first sister went off and then second sister went off and then it was like, okay, now you're home alone for like 3 years or whatever, essentially. Like you do your thing. Like, damn. So that was that
Yeah.
was tough. Yeah, there's a lot of weird just moments just being in the house. Very depressed house with
I was gonna say it's a lot to go through, man.
nobody in there. Yeah, like a broken family was for sure for a while. Yeah.
I'm sure where a lot of this stems from, unfortunately. In terms of
Absolutely.
maybe even with your social anxiety,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I feel like
dealing with that kind of
there's like a break where it's like socializing was not like in general easier. Like I know as I grow up too, I do get more confident and can talk easier in any moment. But like, yeah, just how or who I socialize with, I guess, really shifted. And was like, I don't know. Like I guess that's really the point where it's like, okay, value, like alone time is the value. Like the most value comes from how much time I can spend alone and like be with my thoughts rather than be influenced by anything people are laying out. And in that time, it was like
sure.
all negative because it's like anyone had to throw my was negative. But now it's like slowly flipping because it seems like it's really shifted. Like things are a lot more positive in my life right now, which is really cool. So
That's good, man. So that let's jump from there. We've covered the dark stuff, I think.
yeah,
So thank you for sharing that time period with us. I know it's hard to talk about that kind of stuff.
well, thanks for going there with me. It's I've never done therapy, so this is like an opening grounds. I feel like we're gonna.
Hey man, I mean like I know I'm not claiming to be a therapist or anything like that. I'm just a friend talking to you about it, but
Yeah.
I'm glad that this is a good first step for you at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's piggyback off that last sentiment you just said about things getting better at least, from what you dealt with at an early age with your parents divorcing and having to deal with that, to like dealing with your social anxiety and your depression and stuff like that throughout the years and the hard breakups you said you had to go through and all that kind of stuff you had to go through at that age and throughout the years too. That leads me kind of to the next segment, which is called the rainbow segment.
Rainbow segment, cool.
Yeah. So this is the part of the podcast where it's like the growth. I don't know if you've fully come out of that state. I don't know if anyone can fully come out of depression or fully come out of their
Hmm.
anxiety and stuff, but like just where is it at today? Like, have
Hmm.
you found some coping mechanisms to help? Have you, like, where's the journey at now? Like, the
Absolutely.
rainbow segment is just kind of like coming out of the dark into the light. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seeing the other
No,
side of the coin, if you will. So,
that's what it
Morgan,
is.
are there any positive things that you've discovered during or still finding out about living with your mental health?
Absolutely. Um, yeah, I feel like the recently it just has been the flip of like this is not an outside thing. This is an inside thing. Like this is not because it's like it's always appeared to me that it's people around me and they're explaining to me their mental illnesses and all this stuff. And it always seems so much more serious for other people. It seems like I'm like not a part of it, or it seems like and I'm not sure where that comes from, but like the imposter syndrome of mental health. Like I'm not
Yeah, it
myself.
could
I'm
be. Yeah.
doing this. It's a weird thing, but
You shouldn't
I
compare
feel,
yourself to other people, though. That's a bad
exactly.
trait
And
to have.
now that's the flip where it's like that's not the point of any of this, and like I don't know if you're trying to improve. That's the good thing.
Yeah, man. And whatever you're
Specifically,
going through is what you're going through, right? Like,
exactly.
everyone's going through something different, and that's
Mhm.
that's kind of the point of the podcast, is having these people come on and showcasing different aspects of mental health. It's not black and white. There's a
Mhm.
whole spectrum of colors.
Man,
Hence the rainbow segment.
yeah, the rainbow segment.
But anyways, continue, Morgan.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's lots of little individual rainbows. Like when it comes to like phobias, like just pushing little things every like I out of nowhere when I was in London, I got this like big like height kind of distance. What's that? Um, Whatever. I would just get super tripped up by things in my peripheral at like nighttime. Like if I'm walking around skyscrapers or stuff, it just the balance like really irritates me then. And then I start messing up and I'm like, I don't know, things just start seeming super weird. And then it's all of a, oh, sorry, kick that. It's like all of a sudden then it's like the sky could like I would always focus on sorry, we're still in some dark stuff here, but I would
It's okay.
always ruminate on the concept of like gravity dissipating. And it's like at one moment it could just be like, oh, there's no gravity anymore, who cares? And it's
Whoa.
like just the lift of like every human body lifts off the ground. Like that could happen. And it's like it couldn't happen. I don't expect it to happen.
Well, it
But
could if the world
but
stopped spinning.
you could never tell me it couldn't really happen, but it's not worth thinking about all the time. I'm not trying to.
No, probably not.
And it would literally get to a point where like I would be and still like not really bad now, but occasionally like I'll be like downtown Toronto and like it'll just maybe the CN Tower like will just trigger me and I'll be like, oh, and I'll just like duck a little bit and be like, why is everything like on
Interesting.
level? It's so messed up. And it's just like humans need to be on level or ground. I don't know. That's kind of the vibe. But when it
Crazy.
comes to like the rainbow aspect, it's like
Sure.
recognizing that, and then it's pretty easy. Like it's either okay, I need to work on that. So my friend has a great balcony. Like I'm gonna go on their roof or whatever, spend an afternoon and like look at the sky. Like look at the skyscrapers. Like don't freak out that it's gonna like where is this anxiety coming from? And who knows? Like that's the
Right.
and it just takes time or whatever. Same with like the gore stuff. It's like
Yeah.
in one way it's just like a process of breaking it down. It's like, when I am like desensitized to it in some way, like it's not desensitized, whatever, but it's like these are real things in some ways. So like you're gonna have to. I think that's like a big thing moving forward. My mental health is I know that to continue competing with life, I'm gonna need to shape up some of these skills, and like the
Mm-hmm.
gore one is a major one where it's like I'm gonna need to work on that because like there's a day where I'm gonna like be under the knife for surgery or something, and it's like what can I do about that now? It's like I don't know, learn, desensitize a little bit, and like just try to understand, like make that work. And I feel
Well, I'm
like
hoping
now
you'd be under if you were the one getting surgery.
under knife, what did I say? Was I over knife?
No, you said under the knife, but I'm hoping you would be like under anesthesia, so you'd,
Yes, of
you'd be
course.
asleep.
But
You
I
wouldn't
think
have to watch yourself be.
just the stress of if someone told me I had to do surgery right now or something, like I would be
So just the
like,
idea of it.
oh, dude, I'd be like the worst.
Whoa.
Which is funny because like needles, thinking about the vaccine and stuff, like
Yeah.
when I was a baby, I was really sick. Like my mom was sick when she was having me. I was like a month premature, um, and I was getting shot. It was like a needle every hour for like days or something. It was some kind of crazy thing, and they were like, "Yeah, you were just injected full, like you were constantly poked and pricked." So I kind of have this like I'm not too fussed with needles, like that's okay. It's like same with like the swab for the vaccine. It's like okay, whatever, get over it, like do it. But
Right.
if it came to like nope, someone's doing like you gotta get some work done, like oh my god, it's like something I really would have to like sit down and like it would be an issue with my mental health. Like I would have to process that time, like
Right.
figure that out. So
Yeah, it affects you clearly.
yeah, like really
Right.
heavily. So, um, yeah, and I know when it comes to that, there's going to be I'm going to need some assistance with that, and that'll be a CBT
Sure.
and working through that for periods. But and some of
Yeah.
it feels is like beyond me in some ways. Like that is like a rainbow. I'm not like depression. It's like I can find my little soothing things and like
Mm-hmm.
find out who I connect with better on a regular basis and like develop those like better relationships and things like little
Mm-hmm.
aspects. And I was saying earlier too, it's like it's just the slow come up. It's like looking back at when it's like, okay, got no money coming out of school or whatever, like stuff's really bad. And then it's like, okay, like having musical jobs. And then like right now I'm able to like, I'm just doing music for a living. Like I'm just recording people and engineering. And that's like actually okay for right now. Like that's
That's
going
great,
well.
man.
It's mind blowing. But that's like just such a, like when it comes to anxiety or depression, it's like that in itself is such a weight off or like, I'm not looking outside of that from like a factory being like, how do I get to the life I want to be in right now? And it's like now it
Mm-hmm.
feels a lot more like, okay, I'm in life. Like let's go. Like what
Right.
is I guess COVID was kind of the wrap up there. It's like I felt like I was chasing life. And now it's a lot more like, okay, here,
You've caught
let's
it
go.
now.
Yeah. I feel funny saying that like the last 2 weeks I've been chasing like yoga and meditation. I just need to do a big like I just need to exercise and like take a minute right now. And I've just been busy with sessions and music, but um in general, that's been the big rainbow. I feel like stopping, thinking, like taking
Yeah.
time to sit on the floor and like stretch out. Like I went through a really big skateboarding stint last year, and that was just such
I
a like,
remember.
yeah, just like going outside and like being active, fresh air, like those little things. Like,
It's huge, man.
yeah, especially when like,
Exercise is huge, buddy.
dude, yeah,
And
eating right.
skateboarding is a great medium for exercise. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like the art of it in some ways, whatever, like those things. But
yeah,
I feel
dude.
like it's like quarantine. I could have really convinced myself I was fine and this was gonna be whatever. But it was the perfect flip of like, no, let's do some other things. I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
sinking back into the more hermity, like me doing me all the time, just go for it. But now there's some more things in play. And I feel like it's like little stupid things. It's like I just love candles and incense and
That's cool, man.
like I don't know, like ice. I love ice cubes. That's the best. And like when it comes
That's
to
great,
I
man.
feel like that's stupid, but it's like when I think of me and my depression things, it's like tiny little factors that all these things piece up, and I'm like, my life is generally like I like most of this. This is great. Like
Dude, that's
compared to a thing where it's like I can't think about any. I can't enjoy ice because what's going on in my house right now, or like what's like yeah like
right. I was gonna say that's great that
well
you've able to
rainbows.
like break it down like that instead of because I know a lot of people have a hard time separating the small picture from the big picture, right? And it sounds like you've really stepped back in the last year or so, or last few weeks, or however long it's been, and you really like self-analyze what you need or what's important to you, and you found these little things instead of trying to find a big fucking thing, right? And that's the best way to approach dealing with depression is
Hmm.
that everyone wants it to be over, right? Everyone wants the next big thing. Everyone wants like the new job or the new house or the new friend
Yeah.
group or something that takes time to get to. And then when it doesn't happen, the depression just gets worse, right? I'm guilty of doing this too. I'm not saying that I've mastered this at all.
I
You
feel
know, like
that.
I have a hard time practicing what I preach sometimes. but but it's great though hearing you say that you dealt with that shit in the past, and like you had a hard time living in the moment other than diving into the music to deal with like it as your outlet, right? And
Yeah.
now you're able to step back here in 2021 and you're what, 25 now, 26,
24 going on 25. Yeah.
going on 25, and you're able to sit back and tell me that like you like ice and you like incense and candles and like the little
Mhm.
things, right? It's
Yeah,
not stupid, man. Like that's really cool that you found little inspirations in that. And
cool.
that's sometimes all you need to find is those little things. And that's enough to carry you through a moment, right? Instead of chasing that big fucking thing, like you were
Yeah,
saying, like chasing life. You know, everyone's so busy chasing the next big thing that everyone's chasing fucking life. Whereas like, hey, how about you just enjoy that fucking candle on the table? Or that cool incense that you bought at the store, or uh ice in your fucking drink.
yeah,
Like frozen H2O. What the hell? That's crazy. Like no, it's
yeah.
cool, man.
No, I'm glad. Thank you for pointing that out to me. I feel like that's been. I'm like definitely one of those. Like it's cool hearing myself back in that light. Cause I definitely would think of myself as one of those like big like chunk down on a concept forever, you know. And you're like, what's happening? Or like, what is this? Like, you know, the stupid overall like arcing questions.
Yeah.
But all of the positives are just the random little like it's like going for a walk and it's like take a picture. What is that? Or like a cool tree or something. Like all the little details are the cool things.
Yeah,
But
man. I've always been jealous, if I can be honest with you, in the rainbow segment. I've always been jealous of your ability to find the beauty in things. I feel like I won't say always been good at it, but like, I feel like you and I got a lot closer in the last year or so, oddly enough, being as far apart as we are.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I feel like we connected over a lot of things over the last year or maybe 2 years. Um, and I've always just been astounded at the things that you are capable of doing in such small quantities, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like it's the little things that you do that I'm jealous of because I'm always thinking big picture, right? I'm an extrovert. I love going out and seeing people. I love playing shows. I'm like the opposite of what you don't like doing, right?
Yeah. Funny.
And I have a hard time, especially in this year, with not being able to do that and having to enjoy the smaller things to carry me through, right?
Hmm.
I'm horrible at reminding myself about that, which is why I'm telling you like these little things that you find enjoyment in that helps you with coping with the depression or your anxiety or whatever it's helping you cope with, right? I'm just on the sidelines watching you like, damn, that's so cool that he finds these little things, you know, like before we started rolling your drink that you're drinking right now, you're like, yeah, like this mango thing, it's sick, it's got stuff in it, I'm drinking, it's awesome. I'm like I would just be like, oh, I'm just drinking water, like it, you know, like it's just little things, you know, that you find, like the skateboarding thing that you picked up. That's a small thing, you know, but you were so into it, man. Like, and you're probably still into it. And all the cool artsy stuff that you do, like this, was it the skateboard mural thing that you made, or was it what did you
Oh, drumstick
the
stuff. Yeah.
drumstick stuff? Like that was
Yeah.
so cool, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah. I mean, when an idea comes, I'll try to do whatever I can with it. I'll pluck them and go. Um, yeah, that's cool. Well, it's funny the introvert extrovert COVID, how that's processed. Like that's a, it's just like I love that meme that went around early of like the introverts like looked after you got to look after your extrovert friends right now because it's not going to be good. And I like that was exactly it because I was like Phil's super extroverted, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Phil
But
and I are very similar in that regard.
yeah, so he would come to me and be like, dude, like I'm having a tough one. Like I need to do something. And I was like, dude, I'm having a tough one. Like I like need less of you right now. Or something. It was like, dude, like I'm fine. Please like let me like do. It's funny those little things, but
Right. Like you were in your little pocket. You're like, this is fine for
yeah,
me.
yeah. It's just like
And
oh,
Phil's like, I'm dying.
I'm, I'm like this is literally perfect. Like I've been like when it first hit, it was like not like it was like a little too good for me. It was just like I literally I think had a conversation with Phil. It's like I'm gonna like stop for a while. Like I shouldn't be doing shows right now. Like I'm gonna take some time. I'm gonna figure my stuff out. Like I'm gonna just not. Um, and then that was exactly when it was like everything's canceled. Nothing can happen. Like and it was kind of like the world responded to me. It felt like and it was like this like okay, Morgan doesn't want to do stuff. We'll stop. Like Jesus. And I felt so bad for a minute where I was
You're
like,
like,
wait,
no,
wait, what? Like what did
I
I
didn't
do?
actually mean this.
But then when it got like bad, like 4 months in or something, and people were like tweaking out what to do, and I was like, this is perfect. I'm 4 months into my like perfect, like I have every day, all day to like do this stuff and like get this work done and like do whatever I want to do. And I feel like that like really re-triggered, like I've definitely like dived back into my childhood self in the past like year. Like slowly over the past like 4 years or whatever, kind of, but like the past year or two, like skateboarding really did it in some ways. It was like just kicked off to that 13-year-old where I was like, oh, okay, cool, I can just do this. And then working backwards from there, it's like this, that's cool. It's
That's cool,
finally
man.
childish thing. And then that's funny talking about like water and stuff. I'm like, that feels very much my perspective now. I'm like just working backwards, and I'm like my kid hanging out at his house.
Yeah,
Like,
finding the
yeah,
beauty in small things, right?
yeah,
That's great,
yeah.
dude. I mean, so we pretty much just touched upon all of this already with my next question, but maybe if you can think of something else that you haven't mentioned. How have you sorry, have you found any constructive ways or solutions or coping mechanisms or whatever in dealing with your mental health uh, illnesses?
Mm-hmm. Biggest one is just time. I think comparing myself to others, uh, it always seemed to me that's like, okay, so like you should be able to socialize a lot and not need a lot of time. Like that should just be an okay thing. And realizing like I need so much in between time. Like if I'm gonna socialize with a group of people or whatever, like I need a day after to like figure
Recoup.
that out, just be back in myself, like not be weird about what you know. I don't even know what. Just like there's energy, there's too much other people's energy. I don't know what to do with it. That's
Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
the vibe. So that in its own way, and then like physically, I feel like yoga's done a huge amount of things, like just like stretching out the back, just opening up. I don't know, just being hunched over all the time, sitting at a computer, or whatever. Like what that does to your mental health, I assume must be really bad. There's
yeah,
like the
man.
studio tan thing, just sitting, dark light all day, like looking at screens.
Yeah,
Like that's been a really positive thing, feeling better about my physical health. Um, and then meditation is like I've kind of come and gone with that like quite a lot, and like would have pockets where I meant a lot more, meant little or whatever. And I've always like meditated in music, like
yeah. I feel like music has meditation property to it.
totally. I mean, and I know some people that's like their whole thing. I don't know. I kind of go back and forth because sometimes it's work or sometimes it's whatever, it's play, it's all these things. But like
Yeah,
trying to find time to just like sit and either clear out or do a guided meditation or something. I think when I really realized I was like anxious and depressed in college, that's when I was like, yo, this is real. This isn't like I'm looking at a thing. At that point, I was like, like if I had a 30-minute span between classes or whatever, I'd put on like a guided meditation thing and just like sit and like let it just take over or whatever. I'm like, this is just the easiest way to do this. Why not? And that's like, that becomes less and less like I need that. I feel like that's the kind of vibe and over time. Um, but I say that's like the biggest mechanisms. I mean, I smoke too much weed and that has its own effects, but like
yeah.
that's probably getting phased out soon. It's probably
I
doing
was
more
gonna
worse.
say, are you gonna try and cut back a bit on it?
Oh, totally. Although I mean I say that all the time, so I feel like that's a bad thing. That
You got to put it in practice,
but
man.
gotta put in practice and just yeah,
I got an idea for you, buddy.
yeah.
So you just mentioned like three big things that help you out in terms of dealing with your depression and anxiety, which are huge. Those are great coping mechanisms to deal with it, right? That are healthy, not
Mm-hmm.
unhealthy habits to
Yeah.
have.
Yes.
So my idea to you, Morgs, would just be, and I mean, I could probably practice it myself too, is every time you would normally go to smoke, whether it be like a bowl or a joint or whatever, replace it with one of the three things you just mentioned.
Thanks.
Right. So
Absolutely.
like every time you have like a thought or whatever, or like an inclination to go smoke weed, rather than doing that, be like, okay, I want to do this. Let's replace it with a yoga, like a 10-minute yoga thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then you'll find if you keep doing that, it'll just fade itself out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like that's funny with like 10-minute yoga, like those little things. I can like think of a million little things that you can piece there. I feel
Right.
like I do that with work like all the time. I'll sanction myself and do this like okay, do this for an hour and piece this thing, or like you want to do this instead, focus on this work for a period of time. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to integrate. Yeah.
I don't know. Try it out and see if it works, man. It might
Yeah.
help. It
Yeah.
might help you.
Well, even if just like, certain points in the day, I just find that like that message or whatever, that's like, okay, how can I integrate that in all the time? That's awesome.
Leave yourself notes. Silly as
Mm-hmm.
that sounds, like put a
The hell
fucking
do
post note on your door and be like, "Yo, instead of smoking weed, go do 10-minute yoga or go meditate or work on some music or something or
Mhm.
whatever positive coping mechanism you've been using in the last year to help you get through your depression or your anxiety or whatever. Use that to just lean off weed if it's not doing what it needs to be doing for you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I think it's kind of just like an age thing too. I've always just looked at it. It's like, what age do you stop being that classic stoner? You look at it different. And I think part of the struggle for me too is like, I do know there's certain things that I like about it and wouldn't change, like the anti-inflammatory like aspects, like with the bad stomach, like that's pretty helpful to be honest. Like I quite enjoy that aspect of
Sure.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a line there, and it's like, what is that? Like,
Yeah.
what's the purpose?
Hey, I'm not
And
saying that weed is bad by any means. If any of the listeners are trying to get that
but
sort of,
yeah,
you know,
how
I'm not
you use
saying that. Weed has
it.
great properties to
I
heal,
get
like
you.
you just said, Morgan. But like there's a line, like you said, in the sand of
Mm-hmm.
what's enough and what's too much.
I think that's like such a tough thing about, I don't know, weed specifically, is like when it becomes legal and you're like, okay, so what does that mean then for things that
Hmm.
different?
I
And
think
then
it's subjective to
not
the
also
person.
totally.
You know, I think whatever you deem too much is whatever you deem is too much.
Mhm. Yeah.
And if
And
you
yeah,
feel
it's
like,
like,
go
I don't
ahead.
know, like it's still whatever, it serves a purpose. But I've always just like looked at it as it's like a temporary thing. It's one of those things you look at and you're like, hey, there's a point where you're not doing that. And it's like hanging out with people that are whatever, name an age. And it's like when you see that person doing things that you're doing currently and you're like, I don't want to be that age doing this. Like that's weird.
Right.
Then it like triggers that question. You're like, yeah, I do need to start taking steps to remove this.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm sure you'll get there, buddy. Like
Yeah.
you have to want to do it, right? And then it has to
Yeah,
happen.
that's funny. And I feel like a lot of it like reflects on this, and that was the thing in school, because I like realizing I didn't really like beer a lot and stuff like these. Like it's like, hey, how do you navigate that? But then it's like, oh, did I just lose my thought? I think I just lost my thought.
That's
Oh, no.
okay.
Um, I don't know, but you like navigating those things, and then like, okay, I don't like beer, so what do I like then? And it's okay, so that works. Like what works in other ways? Like
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if that was the point. That sounds worse now. But who knows? Are you still in the rainbow zone?
No, this is like getting towards the end of it now. So
Okay.
you're good. You're good, buddy.
I feel like we just stay in the rainbow zone. That's
The rainbow zone is a nice zone to be in.
that's the
That's why I kind of
that's
end the
the,
pod with the rainbow zone,
that's
right?
the rainbow. I like it.
Yeah, man. I mean, like that's pretty much everything I had to ask. That's covered everything that we need to talk about,
Cool.
buddy. So
Cool.
my last little thing for you, Morgan, is just any final thoughts or feelings that you want to express to the listeners listening to the pod today. It could be like a message of hope or any advice for people dealing with similar things in terms of their mental health. Like just any final words from Morgan to
Absolutely.
wrap the pod up.
Uh, I don't know. Now some stress. I don't want to wrap it up on a weird note or anything. I feel like when you when it was the real reels.
Yes.
I feel like, so I explained the horse thing, and then if you're talking about just like normalizing the conversation about suicide and what that looks like and stuff.
Yeah.
And I've never been overly suicidal. I mean, obviously the thoughts are
I meant
present.
to ask you that. Have you ever felt that way?
Um, definitely like thought. I feel like it's very like, I will, like, I've never made a plan. I guess that's kind of the best way to put it or whatever. It's like thought about
Sure.
lots of random things and like pieced it together, but it's more like abstract thoughts on like what that means or what that looks like. It's crazy. But I was gonna say, I remember one time, and this would be like it's funny what mental health means to you as an adult, but then when you're little, like what has nothing related. And I remember like realizing I could strangle myself or something when I was like, I don't know, 6 or something, super little. And I was just like sitting on the kitchen floor or something. And I just like realized, I was like, oh wait, like, and I just like, and just sat there with my hands around my neck for a while. And like, I wasn't trying to or anything, but like,
Yeah.
and then looking back and realizing that was like essentially like an attempt. Not like I wasn't, I like, I couldn't tell you what happened in that scenario or whatever. but it's like that's so difficult that at the time it's like that means nothing to me about mental health, and that is like just a unique moment that I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. That's really weird. Learning that that's kind of a thing, that that's something you have control over, and then
Yeah,
approaching that thought as an adult, being like, how has that shifted? That's cool. Like I'm definitely not in that place of being curious about that or trying to find that out, but
that's
um,
good.
yeah. But it's just crazy. I feel like that's something that's like hopefully relatable, and if anyone can feel that, like I just remember how strange that was, and kind of retracing that my whole life, being like, what was that? And it's like, well, that's like realizing that that's like the moment, or like
Mm-hmm.
noticing that these thoughts are present. And when that person asks you, like, have you ever had suicidal thoughts or something? It's like, yes, like I'm not gonna lie and say no. Like obviously, yeah, like that's
Yeah,
crazy.
I think it
What's going
happens to a lot more people than people let on. You know, I
on?
think
Yeah,
I think it's
totally.
pretty normal, and especially in today's society, to question our mortality,
Mm-hmm. Well, it's
right?
normal. I think it's like how you think about it too. It's like there's so many ways. So like, what does it mean to, like, it's like not everyone's gonna have like an attempt or something. Not everyone's gonna have this like how you look at it is gonna be really different. So that's, I don't know. It's
Yeah,
funny, different angles. And then end off a more positive note. Where was I going there? I
go for it, go for it.
wanted to slide away from this, but encouragement was that was the and yeah. That all being said, like that's pretty much the baseline of like, please stick around so we can hang out with you. Like I
Yes,
I want to talk to anyone. I know you, Taylor, have the same vibe. So as introvert as I am, I would love to hear stories, people's vibes. Like it's so easy. It's so easy to connect and share and feel it out amongst each other. But
yeah,
it feels so hard. That's just trash.
yep.
Just trash. It's a weird blanket statement, but
Hey, man,
meaningful, I hope, to
you gotta say
somebody.
what you gotta say.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say there. It's a deep topic, and I think it's
It
probably
is.
clear I don't talk about feelings a lot, and I don't have a lot of space for this, which is crazy. Like I think this is very enlightening that I need to find more spaces to speak like this regularly.
I'm glad that this was an
We
opportunity
all
for you,
do.
man. I'm
Yeah.
glad that I'm just proud of you that you came on and wanted to do this with me
Well,
and
I'm just
speak
glad you
openly
want
about it, man. And
to.
I'm glad that you got something out of this as well, because I don't know how the guest is gonna react when they come on and talk about their story. Like it's their life. They've lived their life for their
Mhm.
entire life up until now, and they're
Yeah.
just sharing other people and like in hopes that the listeners can get something from it for themselves, or
Mhm.
maybe it's therapeutic to talk about it from the guest's point of view. That could be a thing too. But yeah, I'm curious to see like this experience of me and you on Zoom right now, and then like obviously it comes out in audio form and video form. But like, yeah, it's an interesting experience to talk about this, and especially from somebody that, like you said, Morgan, that doesn't talk about it that often,
No, not
right? That
really.
so it's cool, man, and I'm proud of you for coming on here and for taking
Thank
that
you.
step, buddy.
Yeah, and hopefully it's an interesting perspective. I mean, I haven't listened to all the episodes, but like, I don't know. I guess in the conversation of mental health, you usually hear a lot of people diagnosed with a lot of things, or very prevalent in the conversation, or and it's good obviously to listen to knowledgeable people. Don't listen to me on these things, but it may be cool to hear a weird perspective of some weird kid with his own weird
Absolutely, man.
ailments. Who knows?
Yeah, it's quite to the contrary, actually, to your point there. I've had more guests undiagnosed than diagnosed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So you
Okay.
are in the majority if you believe
That's
that.
that's interesting. That's interesting.
I think that's probably the case for a lot of people, man. Is that
Yeah, they may
they
be
haven't got
shocked.
diagnosis,
For
right?
them. Hmm.
They've been sorry, living with these things that are like depression and anxiety and all these mental health illnesses that you can point to, but haven't been fully diagnosed yet. And
Hmm.
like I touched upon it in the last couple episodes, but just to reiterate, it's either just because people are scared, because if you get that diagnosis, it becomes real, right? Not that it wasn't real to begin with. I don't want to take
Hmm.
validity away from people, because
Yeah,
whatever you
yeah.
feel is what you feel. It's valid. I'm just saying in the terms of like you hearing it out of the words of someone that's professionally trained to give you a diagnosis on mental health, you hearing it from them makes it more real to you, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Couldn't tell you, but yeah, I can only assume it would be.
I mean, I've been diagnosed with 3 mental health illnesses throughout my life, right? So like I've been in a room when someone told me that, and I always knew that I had it. You know, I couldn't really pin it to one particular thing. I just knew it was an umbrella of whatever it was. But then hearing the actual diagnosis made it real and was scary at first, but it also, I kind of flipped it in a way where it was like, yes, it became real and it was scary. That's like, okay, there's no avoiding this now. Like, this fucking doctor just told me I have this. So it's like, this is real. That's not just like something I can brush off anymore. But the good thing is like, you've identified it now. It's no longer a mystery.
Yeah.
You know, like things become a bit more clear, you know, because they give you the diagnosis and they give you the symptoms that follow with it. And they also tell you what to do to avoid said symptoms and ways to get you out of that mindset, right? Whether that be prescription drugs, therapy, counseling, exercise, meditation, whatever have you, like the coping mechanisms that you and I talked about, whatever they give you, but at least you have a clearer idea of what it is that you're dealing with and how to work yourself through it. Like it won't go away, unfortunately, because mental health illness, there's really isn't a cure for any of these things, right? It's just making it more manageable to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
And I don't know if it would be better if it all changed. You know, I think our unique how we approach these things and how they affect us is like part of part of the beauty of those small things is like what we come away learning from them all.
Yeah, dude.
But
finding beauty in the chaos. That's what I
yeah.
like to, or finding peace in the chaos is what I like to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. I'm thinking there's like I almost have like a pre-anxiety with the diagnosis of like I just there's so many things almost in that hypochondriac sense that like there's so many things that I would attribute myself to and like like mini diagnosis with that I just don't know if I would believe anybody. It's like someone would tell me a diagnosis and I'd be like, not quite. Like it's that. And then someone else would be like that. I'd be like, yeah, but that and the other, like I don't know. And I think that's the funny thing. But obviously, it's like talk to one professional, and I'm sure I'll be set with it.
Yeah. I'm sure they'd break it down for you and be like, well, you have this, Morgan.
Exactly. And I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
You're like, all right, cool.
Monthly, I'm like, oh, it's a different thing. It's a different thing. It's this now. And I feel like it's more specialized. Now that more specialty things come out of the woodworks, like daily, it seems. It's like, I don't know. It seems to be a new label for something every day. I can Google up. It's like, oh, it's this perfect.
Mm-hmm. Something that matches your description.
Exactly. Something new every day. You know,
all right, man. Well, you heard it from Morgan, people. His message of hope. Just stay with us, man.
Yep.
I know it's hard out there. I know we're all dealing with things in our own lives that are very different from one another, but hey, Morgan and I just had an hour-long conversation about things that we went through or things that Morgan went through, right, in his life and how he dealt with it and how he's still dealing with it now, you know, but you know, he's still trucking along doing his thing and you can too. So Morgan, that was very well put. And it's a nice thought to leave the podcast on, buddy.
Good. Thank you.
All right, man. Well, thanks again so much, Morgan, for coming on the show today, buddy, and sharing your story with everybody. I really appreciate it, and I think all the listeners will appreciate it too. So thanks, Morgan.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thanks, Taylor.
No worries, dude. Anytime, man. So I like to end off the show with just like, Morgan, you got any cool projects you can grace people with? Any plugs you want to throw out there to the world?
Oh yeah. Island Radio is out there. Go listen to it.
Go stream it.
Whatever you listen to, go crazy.
What is it? What's it under, buddy? Morgan? It's just Morgan. Yep. Is just your name Morgan Dunbar?
Dunbar. Yep.
So look up Morgan Dunbar on Spotify, Apple Music, all that good shit. Wherever you listen to your music.
Yep. That's everywhere. That's it. And then new Wrong Brothers will be coming soon.
Woo! Featuring me.
Yep. Featuring your boy.
Featuring the host, Taylor Simpson. Hey. No, but it's about you guys. Wrong Brothers coming out with some new tunes. Super stoked, man. Super stoked. Anything else you got to plug?
I don't know. Human Tourist Records, come
There you
through.
go.
Music. Taylor, you come through. You make music too. Let's do it.
Absolutely, buddy. You know it.
Whoever. Let's go.
Cool, man. And where can people find you, buddy, if they want to reach out to you and give you some condolences for your story, or want to reach out to you and just say, hey,
Social, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I just got TikTok.
hey,
Brian, that's funny. A website. Go chat on my website. Come hang out with me.
yeah, man.
MorganDunbar.net. That's it. MorganDunbar.net.
MorganDunbar.net. You heard it here first,
Yep.
folks. Go check it out.
Definitely.
And what's the old Instagram handle so people can DM you?
This is Morgan.Dunbar. Like any of the socials, just Morgan.Dunbar.
Got it. Go reach out to this guy. He's awesome. I know he's a bit of an introvert, but he'll DM you back.
I'll reply. It may take a minute, but I'll get you.
He'll get back to you.
Give me a day or two.
Oh, man. Well, buddy, it's good talking to you, man. So thank you for coming on to the podcast. And like I said, sharing your story with us and opening up about your mental health. I really appreciate you coming on. And yeah, man, just thanks for sharing your story. And I hope the listeners can get something out of it. And hopefully they reach out to you, man.
Yeah. I mean, I really appreciate you having me. And I definitely got some out of it. So hope you did too. Good stuff.
Cool, man. I think I know you a lot better now, I think.
Yeah.
So
I feel like it was funny how you said like knowing each other for like 3 or 4 years, and then just getting closer in the past, hilariously over COVID. Like the more I learn about you, the more it's like, okay, we're closer than I ever thought. So that's cool.
yeah, it's funny how that works out, eh?
Mm-hmm.
You just find out little things along the way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like we've always been in each other's lives, but it's just kind of like little tidbits come up here and there. You're like, huh, that person's a lot closer than I thought.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, someone's kind of there extended, and then it's like, oh no, you got the Fergus link, kind of like, oh, okay, interesting. Like, oh.
Yeah, man. Oh, that's a little fun story. Yeah, like you grew up in Fergus. Sorry, we're gonna this podcast is gonna be forever. Sorry, folks. Give us one more second to tap this story out. Yeah. So Morgan grew up in Fergus, which is, for people that don't know where Fergus is, a small town south, right? South Ontario.
Yeah. I can just tell you it's like an hour away from Toronto, an hour and a half.
There you go. Yeah. And Morgan and I don't know, we had this conversation a few months back, I want to say, where you were talking about it, and I was like, Fergus, I used to go to the fucking Fergus Highland Games all the time, and you used to work there, right?
Yep. Yeah. I always bring up like Alora. People usually know the pre stuff.
Alora, yep.
But as soon as anyone brings up Fergus, it's always like the Highland Games.
Just the Highland Games. The Fergus Highland Games. And it's just like, we had a moment where we're like, oh, dude, we probably met each other way earlier than this and just never knew it, man.
Yeah. Like 12 and 14-year-old, like Morgan and Taylor, like
probably, yeah.
I would have like sold you a drink. Like
yeah, I probably bought a Mountain Dew off you, man.
Yeah. It's so good.
That's just so funny how that works out. How like we crossed paths years ago, probably, and never even knew it. And yeah, here we are in 2021. How many years is that? Fucking
someday.
Almost 10 years ago.
Someday they'll have like a map, like a social media chart or something with all their chips, and it's like, oh, like they cross paths in here in like 1998, and then over here, oh my god, before this happened in oh my god, you're like, wait, what? Like, that'd be so cool. That's what I want.
It is a small world after all, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, we could ramble on forever, I'm sure, but let's let the listeners go. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today. If you like it, leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Leave a review. Let the people know what you think of it. It really helps out the show. Give it a like, give it a follow if you really like it. Tell some of your friends if they would vibe with this, talking openly about mental health and stuff. If you feel like you know somebody that could benefit from listening to this show, like just be like, hey, check out Mental Break with Taylor Simpson and his guests. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, everybody. Remember to drink water, take a deep breath, go outside, get some exercise, wear your mask, get vaccinated if you can, and stay safe out there. All right, Morgan, love you, buddy.
Love that.
Drink water. All right, everybody. Bye.